and welcome to today's edition of Ghana in 24. With me, your regular host, Adam Kojo. In today's edition, we will be looking at some COVID-related stories. We also have some information on the Auditor General. And finally, something about President Mahama naming his running mates. Stay tuned. I'll be back with all the details. You're welcome back. In our first story, over the weekend, the President of the land, His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, through a communique signed by the Minister of Information, Honorable Kojo Nkrumah, informed the public that after he came into contact with at least one person believed to be COVID-19 positive, he, the President, has gone on a 14-day self-isolation on the recommendation or advice of his doctors. Now, this has brought up a lot of controversy as people keep asking and are confused about the difference between an isolation and quarantine. But then clarifications have come out to say that indeed the President is in a self-isolation and that he has not contracted the virus. Also, rumors came out that the President was flown out of the country to London to receive treatment, of which the Director of Communications at the Presidency, Mr. Eugene Ahin, also issued a disclaimer on his Facebook, including posting a picture of the first family, that is the President, his wife, the First Lady, and two of their daughters, observing social distancing and having a family picture in the presidential villa of the Jubilee House. Now, in COVID-related stories, former President John Adjei Kufuor was also rumored to be undergoing treatment with his wife at the UGMC, with rumors stating that he had also contracted the virus. But aide to the President came out to also debunk these rumors, informing the public that it was more of a precautionary measure when some security personnel of his tested positive for the virus. And so, as a precautionary measure, the former President and his wife were evacuated from their residence to the Peduase Lodge, where they will be staying and be under monitoring for the time period. Now, this comes after the back of a number of high-profile personalities in Ghana have tested positive for the COVID virus. Not long ago, the Minister of Health, Honorable Ajimamenu, tested positive, who has since recovered and is going about his duties. Minister for Education, Honorable Matthew Opoku Prempeh, and MP for Okre, Honorable Dan Botwe, also put out a statement that they were under observation at the UGMC following symptoms that could have been COVID-19. We've not yet been updated as to their COVID status, but rumors are arrived that they are undergoing treatment there, as indeed they have tested positive, something we cannot independently verify. On the flip side, former General Secretary of the NPP and CEO of the Forestry Commission, Sir John, also died during the course of the week after he had contracted the COVID-19 disease. Former party chairman, Mr. McMenu, also is suspected to be undergoing treatment for the same disease. And Deputy Minister for Trade, who happens to be the MP for Tema West, Mr. Carlos Ahinkra, also tested positive, and unfortunately he had to resign after he went to a registration center whilst confirming that he knew his COVID-19 status. This brought about a whole lot of issues, with people furthermore calling for the MP to resign and be dropped as the parliamentary candidate in the coming elections. Would that happen? We wait to see. But from all indications, the President says he is well. And from us in Ghana in 24, we do wish the President well and pray that he does not contract this COVID-19 that is fast rampaging our society. In our second story, over the past week, there has been a brouhaha between the Auditor General and the senior minister at the Presidency. Now, It will be recalled that earlier in the year, the Auditor General surcharged the senior minister for 1 million Ghana cedi for some payment to Kroll Company Limited, which the Auditor General said wasn't merited. Now, the senior minister took the Auditor General to court, after which the Auditor General was even found of contempt because he failed to appear when he was invited. The court, however, didn't sentence him but cautioned him and said they were not going to imprison him since he still had work to do. Now, the court, which is the Supreme Court, asked that the senior minister provided some documents to the Auditor General for him to go through, after which they were supposed to come give the Supreme Court a feedback. But in an interesting twist, the president, through his Director of Communications, Eugene Ayin, asked the Auditor General to take his accumulated leave of 132 days. Now, this led into some confusion and some backlash, as people are wondering why at this particular time the Auditor General has been asked to go on leave. Well, the Auditor General wrote back to the presidency, informing the presidency that he, as an Auditor General, had forfeited his leave, and so if anything at all, he was just going to take his leave of 2020, which is 44 days, after which he would resume. Now, the presidency wrote back to the Auditor General, telling him that per the laws of the land, he, the Auditor General, is not permitted to forfeit any leave, and as such, they are adding his 44 days, which he says he's taking, to the previous 132 for him to go on a leave of 167 working days. Well, legal experts have come out to say that accumulated leave is something that is not in the constitution, and so the presidency asking him to go on an accumulated leave is also not right. We actually wait to see what will happen. But in an interesting twist over the weekend, the acting Auditor General actually signed a letter to the senior minister informing him that he is satisfied with the documents the senior minister had presented, and as such, he should write to his lawyers at the Supreme Court to withdraw the case between the Auditor General and the senior minister at the presidency. But then this also hasn't gone well with Ghanaians, with some legal brains coming out to say that the suit was filed against the then Auditor General, and so the acting Auditor General cannot act in his stead. Now, in the letter that was signed, the current deputy, who has assumed the role of his boss, actually signed as an acting Auditor General, of which the legal brains say is invalid because the Auditor General, Mr. Daniel Dumelovo, has not stepped down and is just on leave. And so in any case, the Deputy Auditor General should have signed as deputy and cannot say he is acting. Now, this is a very interesting phenomenon, and then we look forward to see what happens in the coming week. We here in Ghana in 24 will bring you all updates as and when they happen. Now, before we move to our test story, I would like to take another short commercial break, and I'll be right back and give you some filler on John Dramani Mahama and his running mates. Stay tuned. You are welcome back to Ghana in 24 with me, your host, Eden. Now, in our last story, His Excellency, former President John Dramani Mahama, is set to name his running mate today. Now, he's supposed to present his choice of a running mate to the neck of the opposition National Democratic Congress. Rumors are rife that he is set to choose former Vice Chancellor of the University of Cape Coast and former Minister of Education, Professor Jainana Upoko Ajaman, as his running mate for the upcoming 2020 elections. The NEC, however, will have to approve this nomination before she would officially be declared to the public. Other names coming up include former Governor of the Bank of Ghana and former Minister of Finance, Dr. Kwabena Dufo. We also have a former MD for BOST, Mr. Ewa Dakon, We also have an economist, Nee Noy Thompson, and former finance minister under Jerry John Rawlings, Honorable Kwesi Botwe. All these names have been moving around for a very long time, but information picked up by Ghana in 24 indicates that barring any last-minute changes, Honorable Professor Jane Nana Opoku Agyemang would be named the running mate and vice presidential candidate for the opposition National Democratic Congress. Once again, subscribe, like, and share to your friends, because Ghana in 24 brings you the latest of major happenings at the comfort of your home. My name remains Adam Kojo, and see you right on this platform tomorrow. Take care. Bye.